So I know I am late to the party. I have not been watching Bridgerton. Everybody's been watching it. This is right up my alley because everybody knows how much I love historical fiction, period pieces. I did an entire series reviewing the Gilded Age, which I have a whole playlist for that, and I can put it up in one of these note cards so you can watch those reviews. As I'm doing the reviews for the Gilded Age, everybody's popping in asking me about Bridgerton. What did I think about it? Do I have reviews? Have I watched it? And to be honest, I hadn't. Last year when it came out, I dabbled like with the first episode a little bit, but it didn't hold my interest. And it wasn't because it wasn't good content. It had everything that I love, you know, the opulence, the costumes, the time period, the setting. To be honest, I didn't watch it because I felt like all the diversity pulled me out of it, ironically speaking. I love the fact that we have characters from different ethnicities and races. I mean, starting with the Queen all the way down to one of the major love interests, the Duke of Hastings. But because I follow this era so much with real history, I couldn't get into it. I was like, this doesn't make sense. Like, I get it. I see what they're trying to do here, but it just didn't seem believable to me. It took me out of it. And that was just my thing. And as much as I love diversity, I also like the authenticity of a story set in a certain period. And so I was just a little taken aback, and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to watch this, and I don't know if this is good, has legs, or if this is just something that they're doing you know, just because I know Shonda Rhimes is involved, and she's a huge name, and I wasn't sold. But after having done my reviews on the Gilded Age, I did go back and I watched it. I watched all of season one, and I started watching season two. I'm only about 2 episodes in. So after watching it, I stand corrected. I mean, it's an amazing show. I get it. I see why so many people are drawn into it, and why so many people are talking about it, and the fact that there's a second season, and I imagine there'll be many more because it is good. It's good content. It's great acting. It's good. So I said, you know what, let me watch this, let me do a review, and then let me start doing reviews of season two in real time. So for this review, I'm just going to do an overview of season one in its entirety because it's just too much to go through episode by episode. But, and just a note, spoiler alert, if you have not watched it, I will mention things that do not come out or are not revealed until the end of the season. So if you are like me and you were late to the party and you have not yet watched it, I would ask you to pause now and come back to this review after you've watched the whole thing. Yeah, so let's just jump right into it. There is so much to talk about. So I'm going to just touch on a couple of the plot lines that stood out the most to me. I found the most interesting. The first is going to be the storyline with Miss Marina Thompson. So we know that this family, the Featheringtons, which I have some questions about, and I'm hoping that you guys will fill me in the comments, and I'm sure you will, about what their story is. It's the mother, Portia. I forgot the father's name is Archibald. They have 3 daughters. All their names start with P. Penelope, Prudence, and I forgot the third one's name. So, and Portia is just intent on marrying her daughters off. I also heard somewhere that they're like new money, and so she's trying to ensure the continuation of her family's wealth or status through her daughters, as many people did in that time. In the beginning, she learns that her husband's niece is being sent to their home to enter society so that she can find a bride. And in the beginning, I guess they think she's going to be like some ugly duckling, and they're going to have to take her on, and she comes and she's this beautiful young woman. And I think Portia is a little bit off put because she's seeing this as competition for her daughters because she's trying to get her daughters married off. So the young lady comes. And so again, this is this piece where I told you in the beginning it was a little confusing for me because the Featheringtons are white. This young woman is clearly mixed. And, you know, that's just an aside, right? So she comes in and they're trying to marry her off. Soon after she gets there, they learn that she has not had her period and that she is with child. Apparently, she had met a soldier somewhere. She fell in love with him and she got pregnant. And by the time she gets here to London in the Featheringtons' home, it's apparent that she's pregnant. So now Portia learns this, Lady Featherington, and she is now intent on marrying her off quickly before it is obvious that the girl is with child. And this was an interesting plot line for me because it was, I get it. I understand that women did not have a lot of agency at this time, and really and truly marriage was their only way to secure their future. But to try to pass off a baby on some unknowing man is just, it's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong. But then I also understand she's a young girl who fell in love. She got pregnant. She's been sent here by her parents through, obviously she didn't want to be there. She's in a real precarious situation. And she's also being advised by Lady Featherington. So she does what Portia tells her to do. She's like, let's find you a man. She starts finding all these old men who I guess are a little less discerning or less picky to just marry her off. And the idea is that she'll get married quickly. She will have relations with her husband, and then they won't know through the timeline that the child is not his. Marina is not excited about any of these prospects. I mean, why would she be? These are all a bunch of old men. Some of them are looking at her like she's livestock, spinning her around and kind of just assessing her, like, okay, she'll do. And of course, no young woman wants that. She is still in love with the man who's the father of her child. She's been writing letters back and forth, hoping to connect with him. Lady Portia has intercepted some of those. She forged the young man's handwriting and wrote a letter to Marina, making Marina believe that the man wants nothing else to do with her. And that's kind of what convinces Marina that she has to give up on this love of hope, this hope of love, and to fall in line with Portia's game plan of finding her husband. But still, she's not crazy about it. She does, though, come across Colin Bridgerton, who is the third son of Violet Bridgerton. And they fall in love, I don't know, or they grow an affection for each other rather quickly. But I also know that in that time, those are the kind of things that happen. People would meet, they'd have a couple of time together, chaperone time together, and then they would decide to get married. So it's far-fetched, but I guess it's not far-fetched given the time period. But she does beguile him into falling in love with her and wanting to marry her. Problem here is that she has confessed. Well, all of the Featheringtons know what's going on, right? All the daughters know. But Penelope, who is the youngest daughter of Portia Featherington, happens to be in love with Colin. She is best friends with Eloise Bridgerton, who is Colin's little sister. And, she has a crush on him. And I don't know that it's reciprocated or if he just looks at her like a little sister or he's just not attracted to her, whatever. But she does have feelings for him. It seems like they're romantic feelings and also probably just, just the feelings you would have for somebody you quasi grew up with, and the fact that that's her best friend's brother. So she feels a way that they are going to use Colin as the person that she's to marry and to pass off this baby as his. I mean, it's wrong. And like I said earlier, wrong is wrong. I kind of get what Marina is going through, and I kind of get what Portia is trying to do. But, when it becomes Colin who's the target, it feels different because he's such a nice young man, and he seems naive, and he seems intent on marrying her and marrying her quickly. So you feel bad for him because he's being duped. Penelope doesn't like this, and she reveals the secret. And I'll talk a little bit later about the manner in which she does. Again, spoiler alert, because it's a huge reveal for the season, right? So through this method, through one of the gossip column, which is Lady Whistledown, which I'll talk about later, it is revealed that Marina is in fact pregnant, and that's how the information comes out. Colin learns of this. It's a huge scandal. It puts the Featheringtons on the outskirts of society. The Bridgertons are pissed. The mother is pissed, obviously because her son was about to be duped into something horrible. And Colin's heartbroken. I mean, he really did care about this young lady. He thought he loved her. And to find out that this was all a grand scheme was heartbreaking for him. So I say all this to say that Marina's storyline was interesting. And I think it just presented this dichotomy of, women taking the reins and trying to secure their own future, even by any means necessary, as opposed to just falling in line with what is expected of them. And that was the way things were. You know, a woman's father ran her life until she got married and passed over to her husband, and then he ran her life. And, you know, if a woman was lucky, she got a good husband who took care of her and treated her well. But if she didn't, those were kind of like the cards that she was dealt. We see that Portia Featherington, Lady Featherington, is not in a happy marriage. Her husband has gambling problems. He seems very detached. They're not happy, you know, and maybe she, and I don't know the backstory, and if you guys know, you can tell me, because I know that there are books about this. Maybe perhaps she married him, you know, to social climb, to become a part of society or whatever it is. It doesn't seem like it was a union of love. And being that she was part of a union that wasn't based on love or true affection, I can understand how she would push forward this plot, because in her head, this is not about love. This is just about business, right? This is how you move through the world in these times. This is how women secure themselves. So her convincing Marina to lie, or to find a man, and to move forward with this whole this farce, I can see why she would think that there was nothing wrong with it, or why she would convince her to do it, because perhaps she sees that there is no other way for this young lady. And also, you know, she's not a huge fan of Marina, and I think she wants her out of her household as well. So it's kind of like, if I can just kind of get this done, get her married and get her off, I can then focus on my three daughters. So yeah, so that was that was one of the storylines that I felt myself attached to, and I thought was pretty interesting. At the end, we find that her lover, I can't remember his name, I want to say it was George, her child's father, you know, was sending her letters, was trying to get in touch with her. He did still love her, but again, because Lady Portia had intercepted, he never was able to communicate with her. And by the time Marina does learn about him, he has died. His brother comes and he tells her, you know, my brother has died, and, you know, he did love you and all those other things. And he agrees to marry her, because I guess he figures, you know, my brother really loved you. I want to do the right thing. I think it was a matter of honor. But at this time, Marina had taken a whole bunch of like medicines or something that she thought was going to give her an abortion. She thought the baby was gone, and so by the time the brother came, she said she did not need to get married. She didn't want to get married because there was no baby. Come to find out that that stuff that she had done did not work. So she was in fact pregnant. So that was very honorable of the brother to come and try to do the right thing by her. So, you know, she did have I guess, the best happy ending she could in her circumstance. But it spoke a lot. It spoke volumes about the decisions that women in that time felt that they needed to make in order to secure themselves. So the core of this storyline is Daphne Bridgerton. She is the eldest daughter of the Bridgertons. She's one of 8, so her oldest brother is Anthony. All their names are in alphabetical order, and that's the only way I'm able to remember them. So there's Anthony, who is the eldest son. He's the Viscount, and their father has passed away, so he is the head of the household. So we have Anthony, then we have Benedict, then we have Colin, the one who Marina convinced, or, you know, beguiled in order to marry her. Then we have Daphne, who's the eldest girl. Then we have Eloise, who is Penelope Featherington's best friend. And there's 3 others. Like, one is like Gregory, and I don't know. There's, like I said, there's 8 of them. But really, the storyline is focused on like the eldest 5. Daphne, the eldest girl, is named Queen Charlotte's Diamond of the Season. Now, Queen Charlotte, this just as an aside, I'm going to move on to Daphne and her storyline, because it really is I guess the core plot of this season. But Queen Charlotte is a woman of color. She is married to King George, and he seems to have dementia. We don't see him much. And she is an ornery, ostentatious, over the top, just fascinating woman. She actually looks like Wanda Sykes to me. I noticed that. So Queen Charlotte, we every scene we see her, she seems like she is bored. She's annoyed with everything that's going on around her. Uh, she's just a character in and of herself. And every season she names a diamond. And that diamond is the most eligible woman or most eligible young lady of the season. And when she anoints somebody the diamond, then they become the most eligible young lady, and all of the men start courting her. So this season, she selects Daphne. There's a bunch of young men who are courting Daphne, one of whom is the Prince of, I want to say, Germany, who is the Queen's nephew. But the man she ends up with in this kind of roundabout way is Simon, the Duke of Hastings. And this is the major couple, right? Simon has an interesting backstory. He is the Duke of Hastings. We see some flashbacks of his childhood in which his mother died giving birth to him, and his father was just this horrible human being. He seemed to have no regard for his wife. While she was giving birth, his only concern was, is it a son? We learned later that she had a lot of miscarriages, and she struggled to give him a child, to the point where even the doctors had told her that she should stop, but she wanted to give him a son so much, and she did. And unfortunately, she died in the process. And that son was Simon Basset, I think his name is Simon Basset, who is the second Duke of Hastings. He has a horrible relationship with his father. He stutters as a child, and his father, thinks he's a disgrace. He is embarrassed by him. He does the bare minimum with him. He sends him away. I guess it was common at that time for your children to go away to get their education, but he wasn't. His son kept writing him letters. He would not respond to him. He was just downright mean, and this has had an effect on Simon as he's grown into an adult. His aunt, well, I don't call her his aunt, but Lady Danbury, who is my favorite character of this whole thing. She's a delight. Every time she comes on a scene, she's my spirit animal. I love everything about her. She and Simon's mother were friends, and so she was there when the Duchess of Hastings gave birth to Simon, and she was there when she died. And she has taken it upon herself to take care of Simon, to check in on him. She's the one who helped him overcome his stuttering, and she's been by his side the entire time. So back to his relationship with his father. Because of that, on his father's deathbed, he told him that he vows he will be the last of their name. He will not have any children because he knows that that's the one thing his father wanted the most was heirs. He wanted the name to continue on. And that is one way that Simon can get him back, is by cutting the line at him. Him having no children after that will be exactly what his father feared and did not want. So because of this, when he and Daphne do eventually get married, after all this ups and downs, and they went through a whole thing, which is a lot to explain, and if you've watched it, you know all of this. But I just think it's interesting how they have this really amazing sex life. We see they're doing it everywhere. Another thing is interesting is, and I read this somewhere, that they said all the sex scenes were filmed in a way that it was from Daphne's point of view. They wanted to, I guess in a sense, empower women and show the sex from a woman's point of view, because typically in movies and things like that, we see it from a man's point of view. And I didn't realize that until I went back and I watched some episodes, and I did see, it was interesting how they filmed that. So they have an amazing sex life, and he would, he keeps, he will not allow himself to, he doesn't want to impregnate her. So we'll see what he does to not impregnate her. And at first, Daphne doesn't understand or get it, because she was a virgin when they got married. She had no idea. So once she finds that this is a little weird, well, he did tell her when they got married that he could not have children, that he would not be able to have children. She thought it was something physically wrong with him, that he wasn't able to have kids, not that he was making a decision not to have kids. So she starts to put all the pieces together when she sees what he does while they're having sex, and how he pulls out, and because he's trying not to get her pregnant. She did not know what that was about, because nobody talked about those kind of things with young ladies. Then she starts to read. She finds, when in the home, a lot of the letters that he'd written to his father never responded to. Then does she speak to Lady Danbury? I think she might, where Lady Danbury tells her this whole story. So it's just, she starts to put the pieces together. She realizes that it's not that he can't have kids, he's choosing not to have kids. And this becomes a source of contention between them. She was willing to marry him and not have children if he wasn't able to, but knowing that he can, it upsets her because she comes from, like I said, a family of 8. She loves children. She loves family. That's something that's very important to her. And she feels like he's taking that away from her based on, his way of getting revenge against his father. So, they work through it and everything. And eventually she does get pregnant and all that good stuff. But it's just interesting to see how, I guess the message here is our parents really have an effect on us to the point that we will sabotage future relationships, future happiness, and all this stuff just because we're damaged. Be it because we are so damaged that we don't know how to move forward, or we're so fixated on what happened to us, or we are so fixated on getting revenge by any means necessary. People, you cut your nose off to spite your face just to get back at somebody, So that was interesting, and I'm glad that they overcame all of that. So Daphne and Simon do have their happy ending. They get married, they have a kid. Season 2, I heard that the actor who played Simon is not going to be in season 2. So I'm imagining that storyline is over. And I think that the way this works is that this is based on some books, and each book has a different focus on different characters. So I think in the season 2, it's going to be about Anthony Bridgerton and can't remember the young lady's name who he's going to, Kate, I think her name is. But this was the Daphne Simon story. So that story kind of just got tied up nicely with a bow. Now, this is where the spoiler alert really matters. So, again, I told you once, I told you twice. If you have not watched it, you want to stop listening right now because this is a huge spoiler alert. So, the whole time we're watching this, we are hearing a narration of somebody named Lady Whistledown, who has written or is writing, I guess, what their version of a gossip column. And she's commenting on everything that's happening, the relationships, the people, and she seems to be in the know about everything. She kind of is teasing the queen in a sense, almost like kind of implying that she knows more about the queen's kingdom or whatever you want to call it than the queen does. She is just dropping dimes about everybody and just, causing a stir. And everybody's wondering who she is. The person who seems to be most intrigued by this is Eloise Bridgerton. She wants to know who this woman is. She takes some steps to kind of, find out where the paper has been printed and to show up and do all this other stuff. The queen also wants to know who she is because, she's stepping on the queen's toes, right? So this whole time she's narrating in the background, but we don't know who she is. And by the end of the season, we realize that Lady Whistledown is in fact Penelope Featherington, the youngest daughter of the Featherington family. And it makes sense. If you go back and you watch, you'll see that she's always in the background, right? She is a little bit overweight. She seems like a wallflower. She seems like she is being passed over. People don't pay attention to her. She has her friendship with Eloise, but beyond that, people just don't see her. And it would make sense that the person who is not seen knows everything, and it's easy for her to eavesdrop and get information because people aren't paying attention to her. And she has been the one who this entire season has been collecting all this information and draft and writing this in a weekly or daily journal of some sort and creating this stir around the town. And ironically, she was the one who dropped the dime on Marina about Marina being pregnant, and she knew this because she lived in the household. So that's a piece where you're wondering, was that wrong? There's a couple of layers to this. So number one, you gossiped to the own demise of your family because it made the Featheringtons look really bad, and it eventually ostracized them from society. Well, she was willing to do that. And is it because she doesn't have a huge affection for her family? Is it because she's in love with Colin and she didn't want to see him hurt? Is it because she is, quote unquote, a journalist and it's her job to tell the juicy stories? I don't know. I'm not sure what her motivation was. I'm thinking mostly because she's in love with Colin and she didn't want to see him get hurt. And she did try to tell him at some point what Marina was doing, but it's just I would really like to know more about her motive and what made her actually make that, because that had to be a hard decision to make, to be the one to reveal that family secret. But yeah, so she's Lady Whistledown, and we see. Like I said, I started watching season 2. I haven't gotten far into it yet, but at this point, we see how she is operating and going to the printer and planting all these, and, telling the stories and having the things circulated and whatnot. So that was an interesting twist. I would not have thought it was her. At one point, we thought it was the dressmaker because she has kind of been, around, like lingering. People coming to get their dresses. She's overhearing folks, but turns out that it was Penelope. Question for y'all. What's up with the Featheringtons and all this color, right? So she dresses, Penelope is always wearing yellow or some bright orange or something. She's dressed like a sunflower. And the other two are always wearing these bright colors. Like, if you read the books or if you know something that I don't, like, what is that all about? I mean, it's obviously by design, right? Another thing I noticed is her name is Penelope, and she's penning all of these stories, right? So again, I'm sure that that was something that they did on purpose, because I think they actually do call her Pen for short, and ironically, she's the one who's writing this. And then we see her purchasing quill pens while they're out in the market every now and then. And so then there's this whole thing with her last name being Featherington and her using the feather pen and writing the stories. So I see how that's all tying together. And maybe those were just the clues that they were dropping that people aren't paying attention to. But now that you know it, you put it all together. You're like, oh, okay, it makes perfect sense. So just little, I guess, nuggets that they're throwing in there. So like I said, I wasn't sold on this initially because I thought the diversity pulled me out of it. It just, seeing Indian and Asian and Black and people of color in high society, and I knew it happened in some instances, but it really wasn't a widespread thing. But I like that they addressed that in this one scene here.
Look at our queen. Look at our king. Look at their marriage. Look at everything it is doing for us, allowing us to become. We were two separate societies, divided by color, until a king fell in love with one of us. Love, your grace, conquers all.
So when Lady Danbury is chastising Simon for not pursuing Daphne and just not wanting to be a part of society and all of this because he's angry with his father, she says to him, she brings up the fact that King George selected Queen Charlotte, who is a woman of color, and it is that union there that opened the doors for the two societies to come together, and that it wasn't a thing before, and that people of color were only allowed in after after Charlotte became queen. And that helped me understand it. I just needed, the way my mind thinks, I just need some background information. It needs to kind of make sense to me. So that really helped me pull all the pieces together. I mean, it would be amazing if that was a thing. And I know there's some history that says Queen Charlotte may have had some Black blood in her, but to think that an interracial union at that level could then change the trajectory of the entire country and of nobility and the royals would be amazing if that truly could be a thing. And we see an example of with Harry, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. And I think that's what some people thought was going to happen, that him marrying a biracial woman would open up the doors and have folks be more open to diversity. And then there's all this conversation about, how the royals are racist and the things that they've said behind closed doors, and the concern they had for their first son's complexion. And again, I don't know how much of this is true or not, but it definitely became an issue. So, in this day and age, the intermingling of races is still an issue at that level. So to think that back in the 1800s, that's something that could have been shifted by a union is pretty amazing. So I liked it. I thought it was I like the music. I like the fact that they have modern music and they kind of infuse that. They did like Material Girl. I think they did a song, a Rihanna song in there. And if you know, it's I like what they're doing. I think the way they're intertwining some of this modern stuff into 19th century England is cool. It does put a different twist on it. It's original. The storylines are good. I live for this kind of stuff. So I'm sold. Sorry I waited so long to start watching it, but I will be watching season 2 and I will be doing reviews week by week or as often as I can get through them. And I would love to, open up this conversation about, folks' thoughts about this and, where there is some overlap with real history and your thoughts about the characters and the plot lines and things that happened and all this good stuff because after my reviews of The Gilded Age, we had some really robust conversations in the comments. Us folks who really enjoy these kind of things. And so, again, I encourage you to watch, to comment, to share, subscribe, and I will be back on the very minimum a weekly basis to do reviews of season 2, possibly more so if I watch them in batches. But thanks again for watching, and if you haven't watched The Gilded Age, you need to go. That's on HBO Max. It's an amazing story. It's more history. It's based in the United States during the Gilded Age in the late 1880s, and it is the late 1800s, and it has a lot of kind of overlap with real history, but it is fascinating. So if you like Bridgerton, you will love The Gilded Age, and I have a full series review on that entire season and can't wait till season 2. So that's it. Have a happy Easter, and I'll talk to you guys definitely by next week.